to this planning committee meeting, members and ladies and gentlemen, members of the public and those viewing online as well. It's 6 o'clock and it's the 13th of May, 2024. Could I please start by asking for any apologies? I have received some apologies, so if I read those out, and if we have any more, please let me know. Councillor Vernon, Councillor Checkland, Councillor Sharon Taylor, and Councillor Powell are the 4 that I've got. Any others, please, members? Okay, thank you. So if we can record those apologies, please. The second item on the agenda is the declarations of interest. And members, if we have any declarations of interest, would you please show? Okay, I'm going to start off with Councillor Cross. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Case number 22/000106/FULM, land off Horner Avenue, Fradley, Lichfield. I'm a ward councillor and in that area. I've not attended any of the residents' meetings or been involved in any of the groups that they have formed. And I've kept an individual view on this. So I reserve the right to sit in on this committee, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cross. Thank you. And Councillor Wilcox, I believe you wish to declare an interest as well. Councillor Cross, if you can turn your microphone off, please.
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
So I've got two, 22/00106/FULM, land off Horner Avenue, and 23/00821/FUL, land north of Dark Lane, Orry was, as these applications are both in my ward.
Thank you very much. And I realise that Councillor Cross, you wish to come back. Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Cross, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I omitted to declare on 23/00821/FUL, land north of Oak, Dark Lane, or was. I'm a ward councillor there also.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Has that exhausted all the declarations of interest? I think it probably has. Thank you. Okay, so we now move on to the next item, members, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. That's the meeting that was held in this, not in this chamber, but in this council building on the 8th of April. You've all had a copy of those minutes circulated. If you're happy that they represent a true and correct record of the meeting that took place on the occasion of the 8th of April, would you please show?
Move the Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you very much. Okay, so members, we now move on to the main purpose of this evening's meeting, which is the planning applications, of which we have 5 listed. Now, the first one that's due for consideration this evening is the land beyond Horner Avenue, which is 22/00106/FULM. Now, I am aware that there has been a lot of local interest, and when I say interest, I mean probably opposition to this. I think 90 households and a total of 112 letters of objection. I know that there are also issues, county highways, I think there are quite a few issues there which, from my perspective, appear to be slightly unresolved. I know that she's not here at the moment, but the head of planning, which is Artemis Christofi, is quite an advocate of site visits. And in her absence, I have been consulting with Kerry Challoner on Thursday about this. And I think that because of the myriad concerns expressed by local people and also some of the highway problems there as well, and not forgetting, of course, that this did come before the inspector a couple of years ago, and he then actually dismissed the appeal. I know that was a different application, but there are certain aspects which are perhaps arguably quite similar. For that reason, I think that deferment is what I would suggest the right way forward, but I'm prepared to accept that we need a consensus on this. So first of all, I'm going to propose deferment with a view to having a site visit of all members, or all those members who are able to attend Horner Avenue and the site in question before the occurrence of the next planning committee meeting, within the next 2 weeks, I would suggest. And so what I need to do is to establish whether I have any support within the committee for that view of deferment, with a view to having a site visit and bringing it back to planning committee, hopefully at the next opportunity. Do I have anyone willing to second that proposal, please? Thank you. So that's Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Sonia Wilcox. Members, if you're able to just show whether you support that view, please, I'd be very grateful if you could raise your hands if you do support the view that this should be deferred for a site visit, pending its appearance, hopefully, at the next planning committee meeting. Thank you. Is that unanimous? No. Councillor, that's an abstention. Thank you very much. Councillor Anketel, you're abstaining. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. So if that can be recorded, please, that we are going to be deferring this application. And to the members of the public who've turned up this evening, I do apologise. Whether you will feel as though that is a reasonable way forward, of course, is a moot point. But in the pursuit of fairness, and I think the ability of the planning committee to get a full appraisal of this situation, we are going to defer this until hopefully the next meeting. Thank you very much. But I do apologise if you've turned out this evening to hear this being determined, then I can only apologise that it hasn't been determined this evening. Thank you. Members, thank you very much for your considered opinion there. It is appreciated, and we look forward to perhaps that returning to the next planning committee meeting here at Lichfield. I have another announcement to make, and that is that the order which has been printed, we're going to make an amendment to that, and the former Bridge Cross Garage site, Cannock Road Chase Terrace, which is the 5th item on your agenda, we are going to be discussing that one next. So that will now become the 2nd item on this agenda, please. And to take us through this report, which is 23/01439/FULM, is Tom Ansell, Senior Planning Officer Tom Ansell. And I think when you're ready, Tom, I think you've just got to sort out your computer, have you, at the moment? So we'll just give you a couple of moments to do that. Thank you. So you will be aware, members, that we have seen this one before, this former Bridge Cross Garage site, Cannock Road Chase Terrace. And so some of you, those of you who are on the planning committee, I think prior to the last election will be familiar with this. Those of you who've only come on the planning committee since the last election probably will not be familiar. So. But Mr. Ansell is going to take us through this in a moment when you're ready, Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you. So just to reiterate, this is application 23/01439/FULM, and it's the former site of Bridge Cross Garage, Cannock Road, Chase Terrace, Burntwood, and it's a site which is quite well known to some of the local councillors I know, and in fact those members of the planning committee will be familiar as well, as I say, who were here prior to the last election a year ago. Mr. Ansell, ready when you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So this application concerns a parcel of land to the south of Cannock Road within the built-up area of Burntwood. It is located within Burntwood Town Centre as designated by the neighbourhood plan and has been vacant for some time. The site has historically contained overgrown grass and shrubs. This has been recently cleared back. The constraints affecting the site are it's within the built limits or confines of Burntwood. It's within the Burntwood town centre. It's an allocated site, B13, according to the local plans allocations document, and site A within the Burntwood neighbourhood plan. And it's within the Cannock Chase special area of conservation, and it's within an area that has a low susceptibility to groundwater flooding. The site lies to the south of Cannock Road. The access will be taken from Cannock Road and will run along the eastern edge of the site. Permitting access into the care homes car park while also maintaining access to the rest of the allocated site to the south. To the west of the site is the Emmanuel New Life Church. And to the eastern boundary is a coffee shop fronting onto Cannock Road, and there's a larger mixed-use building attached to this. Chaseview Care Home lies nearly directly opposite. And to the south is the remainder of the allocated site within the neighbourhood plan. So I'll just show some photographs of the site now. So these were taken from the northern side of Cannock Road facing south. And it's just a shot from left to right across the site. And then photograph 4 is from within the site, as you can see from there facing out. So it's a north facing photograph from within the site, from about where the access would be. These photographs again from within the site facing sort of northwest and west respectively. That's the Emmanuel Church. And then from the other side of the site, from the western side, again, that's the church in that photograph. And then that's east throughout the site, and then that's south towards, so in the background, you can see the rest of the allocated site there. The care home will be accessed from the northeastern edge of the site via a road, which will have an accompanying footpath. The care home provides parking, which exceeds the provision within the council's SPD on sustainable design. At the front of the site is a community cafe shared space, which will be open to the public. So that's this bit here. The new building will be 3 stories in height and have a hipped roof punctuated by projecting gables. The north-facing street elevation has been amended following concerns raised by the inspector when they dismissed the previous appeal. This elevation has been lifted through additional projecting gables, a more varied material palette, and some new architectural detailing such as brick banding, which is a little difficult to see on this plan, but you've got brick banding details along the first floor and some next to the gables too. 72 bedrooms will be provided over 3 stories. On the second floor, a 16.2 metre squared visiting clinical surgery room has been provided by the applicant to mitigate the increased pressure the development will place on the Burntwood primary care network. So you can just see that extracted from the plan there. This drawing is actually these are the elevations of the scheme that went to appeal, and that appeal was dismissed. And one of the reasons for that dismissal was due to the scale massing and the architectural blandness of the northern elevation. So that's this elevation. Councillors are requested initially to consider the principle of development, noting the building is proposed on an allocated mixed-use site within the Burntwood town centre, bearing in mind the inspector's conclusions in the dismissed appeal as set out in the committee report. Councillors are requested to also consider the design and visual impact of the development, the impact of the development of residential amenity, access and highway safety, impact on trees, ecology, drainage and flood risk. After consideration, another consideration for councillors is a mitigation proposed to offset the development's impact on the Burntwood primary care network, the provision of 16.2 metres squared of internal visiting clinical surgery space. Councillors will have noted a written update containing more information on this matter in the committee supplementary planning document. After the careful consideration of all relevant matters, officers conclude that the application should be supported for the reasons set out in the accompanying reports, in accordance with the Section 106 agreement and the conditions as per the heads of terms and details respectively set out on pages 102 to 108 of the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ansell, for taking us through that. So members, we do have a speaker this evening on this application, and it's the applicant's agent, and it's Mr. Paul Shuker. Mr. Shuker, if you'd like to make your way, please, so that you have a microphone. So to make your microphone work, I think it's already functioning. Yes, the red lights come on, so that's fine. So you may well be familiar with the protocol here, but as the applicant's agent, you have 5 minutes. And with 30 seconds remaining, you will be notified that you have just half a minute to go. If you're still speaking at the end of 5 minutes, then you must cease immediately. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Your time will start as soon as you begin to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members. I speak on behalf of the applicant Urban Village Group, and we're delighted to be able to present the application this evening. This application is a revised submission that was dismissed at the planning appeal in June 2023. Following the appeal decision, the applicant has worked collaboratively with the council, key stakeholders, the town council, and the local planning and the local community through extensive pre-application meetings and public consultation events. The proposals during the public consultation received a majority, 56% support and neutrality, with visitors recognising and commending the bespoke and specialised nature of the residential dementia care proposed. The care home will be delivered for the applicant's partnered care home provider, Bracebridge Care Group, a leading provider in the UK of residential care and health provision, offering a new type of care experience based on emotional intelligence, innovative technology, and a transparent relationship building approach. It is recognised throughout the new application that there is a clear and recognised need for such provision of dementia care in Burntwood and the borough. This is evidenced through the supporting needs assessment provided by Knight Frank, Lichfield Council's own housing officer, and Staffordshire's marketing positioning statement, all evidence significant and recognised need. We are, however, aware Burntwood Town Council's objection to the scheme, who rejected on the basis of the proposal being contrary to the Burntwood neighbourhood plan. The objection provides no reasoning as to why the proposals are contrary to the neighbourhood plan, and we must stress that policy B1 of the neighbourhood plan supports mixed-use development, including residential, community, leisure, health, our emphasis, and retail. The policy concludes by stating mixed-use development at this site is not limited to such uses. The committee report written and in front of you tonight and the previous inspector also confirms that a care home is an acceptable use in principle. The proposed development will ensure that mixed-use development is provided at the site through specialist residential accommodation and community floor space. This is fully reinforced and backed up by the inspector, who confirmed the proposals would not conflict with the uses specified in policy B1 of the neighbourhood development plan, adding that the scale of the proposal would not unduly restrict visibility of the remaining site A to the back or act as an unacceptable barrier to its future development. Lastly, the inspector added the proposed layout and mix of uses would be suitable for its location in Burntwood Town Centre. As reinforced by the planning inspectorate and the case officer in his committee report, the proposal is appropriate in the context of Burton Wood neighbourhood plan and should be considered acceptable in policy terms. We trust that limited weight can be attached to the Town Council's remaining concerns. The case officer is also satisfied that we have provided and improved the design through introduction of projecting gables, improved materiality, and is also confident in the provision of in-house clinical floor space that is preferred and the most effective way of securing mitigation of the development's impact on the primary care network in the borough. As such, it is considered that the applicant has positively responded to the inspector's previous concerns. The application would not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of Cannock Road, and the provision of on-site clinical floor space will sufficiently mitigate those previous concerns. This stance is also supported by the case officer, who has confirmed that the Integrated Care Board's request for financial contribution fails to meet the required SIL tests. We agree with that position. The applicant fully endorses the case officer's report and its conclusions, in that the proposed development fully satisfies the flying policies in the local plan and the NPPF. We trust that the committee tonight can agree with this conclusion, and this exemplar scheme truly does represent a sustainable led regeneration for Burntwood Town Centre, whilst also providing a much needed dementia care for the community. Thank you.
Mr. Shuker, thank you very much indeed. So There you are, members. That's the applicant's agent speaking there. And so I know that I've already had one member express a desire to speak, and that's Councillor Evans, and then Councillor Anketel, and then Councillor Salter. Councillor Evans, and Councillor, Councillor Galvin, sorry. Yeah, thank you. So that's 4 members to speak. Councillor Evans first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was rather disappointed that on Friday, late on Friday afternoon, we received 6 pages on here, which I think is very unusual for us to receive a report, a supplementary report of this length. And a number of on there, obviously, were a number of further observations. I was mindful to suggest a deferment in order that all these extra conditions can be met with, because it's important that they are all addressed. And it would be without the need, therefore, I would have thought, without 106 agreements, as they are quite important issues on unresolved matters. Everybody will know that in the past we have been very strongly opposed to this. And my main concern is, and always has been, that this is totally against the Neighbour Plan, which the public endorsed a few years ago when this area was zoned for retail and residential. And I appreciate now that the residential aspect is now complied with, and that retail is very difficult at the moment, we know that. But if the public are asked to give their views and we deviate or we ignore that, they won't be very happy, and they are not very happy at the moment about this application. Because this is an area of Sankey's Corner that was zoned as Burntwood Town Centre, and a care home was not envisaged to be part of that. And the idea of a community hub or cafe, which is being helped to overcome one of the inspector's reasons for refusal, doesn't really help the situation. As well as that, the ICB concerns are quite extensive, including the provision of a visiting doctor. Is that going to work? As we know that GPs are very few and far between, and that is going to put more pressure on existing practices that are left. And there is also the travel plan to be considered, which has not yet reached an amicable conclusion. So despite the option of a 106 agreement, I am also concerned that the applicant has not yet submitted his answers to that, and surely there's been plenty of time to do that. So I need assurance that all these additions or observations can be met via a 106 agreement. And I'm disappointed that councillors and residents' feelings into this what we would consider an inappropriate development on Sankey's Corner, Burntwood Town Centre site is it's still inappropriate. But I believe that at the moment, because of things that the inspector said that have been addressed through planning, that our hands are really tied on this situation at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Evans, thank you very much for that. I think very objective assessment. I very much appreciate it, because I know that obviously you're quite intimately involved with this site. You know it very well. It's quite local to you, and I very much appreciate that view. Thank you. Okay, thank you. If I may now ask for Councillor Anketel, please, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of queries. Somewhere in the report, I seem to read that there was a consulting room of 10 meters square. And I think I heard the officer say something about a room of 16 meters square. Are there 2 different rooms?
So the original response to the Integrated Care Board's concerns by the applicant was to provide a 10 meter squared space, and based on the Integrated Care Board's request, that they concluded that the development would result in the need for about 8.6 from memory. So they over provided 10, However, a subsequent response from the Integrated Care Board indicated that minimum space standards that the NHS would require for a new room would be 16. So it was increased to 16 in response to that. So there's one room, 16 square meters.
Thank you. If I may go on, Chair.
Yes, please carry on, Councillor Anketel.
The inspector seems to have turned down the appeal on the grounds that the ICB was not asking for enough money. And now the ICB is asking for more money, about 50% more. So I'm not quite sure if we've got much ground for turning it down. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll just ask Mr. Ansell to come back on that one. Thank you.
The inspector's concerns wasn't necessarily concerning the amount of money. It was concerning the ability for that money to go towards the project that the Integrated Care Board had identified as being used. The project that the ICB identified was, there's no guarantee of its delivery concurrently with the care home. So the project, the strategic health project that the Integrated Care Board are working on in Burntwood, it hasn't reached a point of having, it hasn't even got a planning application in at this moment in time, and neither did it at the time of the appeal being heard. So the inspector's conclusions were that whilst they may get a contribution, there's no guarantee that the care home would open and there would be mitigation in place for the pressures on the primary care network. So the inspector was effectively saying that the contribution may be enough, there may be a need for it, but it will not be effective in mitigating the harm because there isn't something for it to go towards, there isn't something physical for it to go towards.
Is that okay, Councillor Anketel? Yep, thank you very much. And thank you for the explanation, Mr. Ansell. Thank you. Next, then we have Councillor Salter, then Councillor Galvin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I may have misheard or misunderstood, and it may be that the speaker, the agent, might be the only person who can clarify this, but at the fairly close to the beginning of his report, he mentioned a 50%, sorry, I beg your pardon, a 56% support. It sounded as though he was sort of qualifying that by saying it was a mixture of positive support and indifference. Is that the case? Was it 56% of actual support or mix? I don't know whether the
I mean, normal protocol would suggest that we don't have a conversation. If the question is the 56%, is that all people who are positive, or is that including people who are positive and indifferent? If you can just nod your head to suggest that that assertion is correct. So that's positive and indifferent is 56%. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Galvin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I read this one with interest, being a resident in the area and the town councillor, and I must say there are some positives for this. It's a much needed service. There's lots of people on delayed discharge from NHS hospitals because of being bed blockers, for want of a better term, and so hopefully this would help the NHS. It will provide jobs for the people of Burntwood and Lichfield district, for those that want to work in care. I see there's 13 people watching the live streams. As someone that spent his adult life working in the NHS, it's a great career and I'd recommend it if any of those people are young enough to be planning a career. Another positive is it's currently wasteland, and the indifference that I think was mentioned earlier is people local to the area think anything is better than nothing, and that nothing is currently there. I have some concerns. Already in Burntwood, people have problems obtaining GP appointments. I've read through the ICB plans in this, and they said there will be temporary agreements to help with appointments, whatever. These are elderly people who are frail, that are going to have increased health needs. I'd have liked the ICB to have said what these temporary agreements are, and whether or not that's going to be to the detriment of the people of Burntwood who already struggle to have GP appointments. I appreciate standard level agreements can be done with GPs, but again, there's a shortage of GPs, so it may cause problems. The other part, and the main part of my concerns, is it's against the neighbourhood plan. People wanted a visible town centre, they wanted retail, entertainment, and an identity for the centre of Burntwood, which we don't have. And I can't help but feel that this will be a sort of monument to the failure of the district council to provide the people of Burntwood what they voted for. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Galvin. Some very good points there, fair comments, thank you. The point about the GP coverage, I know that that's almost one of the central tenets now of this application. And I think you have addressed that, Mr. Ansell, but I think the concern is that by having a 72-bed care home there, you are putting extra pressure on the primary care system. In Burntwood. And I know that the ICB has concerns, which we've already touched on. Can you just perhaps assure the members that at the moment, the way that this is being suggested, it's not going to be detrimental to the people of Burntwood in terms of their GP provision, please? Thank you.
So the nature of the IC Integrated Care Board, which I'll say ICB from now on, the nature of the ICB's request is that they wanted money that would go towards the construction of additional floor space as part of a strategic health centre. They haven't specified it would go towards hiring GPs or new staff, although it's likely that when you're building a new health centre, that would probably come into it. However, the amount of money that the ICB has worked out was based upon, here's the floor space we need generated by the number of residents, and so would need to create this additional floor space in any new strategic facility. So whilst obviously it would be ideal if there was a way for a development to increase the number of GPs, which would help it would help Burntwood, the primary care network of Burntwood in sort of a wider sense. The development really needs to address the impact it has on the primary care network. Its obligation is to neutralise the impact it has, and that impact has been quantified as additional floor space by the Integrated Care Board, and that floor space has been provided in-house. Now, there are arguments that having an in-house consultation space for this care home would be helpful. It would mean that a GP who would usually have to do house visits every 2 or 3 months, they would go to each individual house. So if these people happen to all be within the primary care network, the GP would be going to each individual house and then traveling between them. But if they're all in one place and there's a sort of consultation room in that one place, the GP goes to one location and then all of the patients will go to them. So there's a degree of, it could be more efficient for GPs to see more patients if there is an integrated room within the building. So I don't think that this will, acknowledging that there is, a shortage of GPs, I do not believe this development will result in that impact being exacerbated in any way. I think the provision of the in-house space is sufficient to mitigate this development's impact.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rance. Councillor Ashton, please. Oh, and Councillor Galvin wishes to come back. Councillor Galvin, in just a moment, please, once I've heard from Councillor Ashton. Thank you.
Point of clarification. Do I understand that there is a care home already in there opposite on the north side of Cannock Road? And if so, was that care home in place before or after the current neighbourhood plan?
I do not know that. I could defer to a councillor that knows, or I could have a look and see if there's planning history to see when it was approved, but it looked like the plan with the neighbourhood before, the neighbourhood plan being 2018, that's probably before.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. That answers your question, I take it, satisfactorily. Thank you. Councillor Galvin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My only concern still remains with the GP services is that the people that are going to be admitted to here, it's unlikely that they will all come from Burntwood, and so they will already have a Burntwood GP. So it'd be people coming from outside of the area, which will put increased pressure on the primary care services that we had. So that's my main concern about this.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin. I think that is a reasonable point to make, and I think a lot of people would draw that conclusion as well. Thank you. Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you. I assume, and from what I've read, that if they don't get the 106 agreements in place, the planning application will not go ahead. And is that right? And if so, how are we going to be assured that these 106 agreements, if we agree with this tonight, will actually get sorted? And I noticed there was a date of August. Am I right with that? So it is the concern that there are a number of 106 agreements to be signed. And I would have thought that in an application like this, it would have been better to have got them sorted before we had to go down the route of 106.
I'll just come in there. Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Yes, the date, I think, at the start of this report suggests by the 13th of August 2024. That's 3 months from this committee. Thank you. So, Mr. Ansell, please.
Yeah, just to reassure, it is quite common practice for an application that requires a legal agreement, where the legal agreement is confident in securing the mitigation and contribution. And so in this case, the contributions, a travel plan monitoring fee, it's also going to secure the provision of an up-to-date and amended travel plan too, to address the concerns that I think you mentioned, that the travel plan was still, the highway still had outstanding queries. And then the securing of the community public use and the securing of the in-house visiting clinical surgery room. These are all relatively common or normal level things to have in one single Section 106 agreement. And it is sort of relatively common for committees to be asked to approve something subject to the legal agreement being agreed. And that can even go beyond the initial date of August if there is progress being made and there's an extension of times and mutually agreed. We could take our time and make sure it's right and get a legal agreement in place that does everything that it needs to do to mitigate the harm.
Yes, indeed. So, Stuart Evans, the legal officer, coming in now. Thank you.
I just think it's worth clarifying the situation. This is normal practice with a Section 106 agreement, and clearly the planning permission will not be issued until the 106 agreement is completed. That's the safeguard.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stuart Evans there. Yes, Councillor Evans, this is fairly standard practice. We have seen it before, and it often appears on planning reports. Very often, perhaps, we don't really go into it in great detail because there is possibly rarely a necessity to do so. I think on this occasion, you're right to highlight it, but as I say, it is a fairly standard practice. Thank you. Could I just bring in Mark Evans here? Mark Evans, Senior Highways Officer at Staffordshire County Council. We've talked about the travel plan, and I think the Staffordshire County Council Highways appears to have one or two reservations. If you can just perhaps elucidate that, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, members of the Planning Committee. Yeah, in terms of our formal response to the planning application, we did note that the travel plan was lacking in a few areas. Hence, we requested at the time through our formal reply that those be addressed. The most recent consultation that's come through, again, we have a travel plan team at the County Council that are responsible for monitoring it. We don't read it, we're not the experts, so we pass that on. They did come back and still said that there were things that were outstanding, therefore it would need updating. Nothing is not possible, it just needs to be done. So for example, I'm just reading, excuse me, the email that was sent by my colleague. They were talking about, is there going to be any car share spaces on the car park to encourage people to travel rather than just single occupancy? Details of the cycle storage facilities. Now we've got details of that within the application in terms of what the cycle parking facilities look like, but that takes it on to a second stage in what they're referring to as if you encourage staff or even visitors to cycle there, especially staff, where do they change into, say, a uniform? Is there a locker facility that they can get out of their clothes, day clothes, into a uniform? So that is normally covered in a travel plan, which colleagues couldn't find. And again, details if you're encouraging visitors to go to a care home who may live locally, the care home can provide details of sustainable modes of travel to the site. So walking routes, cycle routes, or bus infrastructure, or even local taxi companies. And apparently that wasn't in the document either. So nothing groundbreaking. It requires some paragraphs to be put in to the plan, and it requires the applicant to take on board those considerations and take those forwards in terms of being able to make their site more sustainable. Now, obviously, if we've heard before in the officer's presentation, there is sufficient car parking on the site. It meets your standards. So this is over and above what is required from parking point of view, but to encourage more sustainable modes. Going back to Councillor Evans' point of view and the 106, Councillor Evans is correct in what the legal officer has also said, is we would wish to see, if planning permission was granted tonight, work with the applicant to put those extra paragraphs in, to make those extra commitments before the 106 is signed. What normally happens is the travel plan gets appended to the legal agreement, along with the monitoring fee that we try and secure. So in that intermediate period of permission being granted potentially tonight and planning permission being issued by the district council, we would work with them to put those additional paragraphs in, and then it would be appended to the legal document.
Mr. Evans, thank you very much for that. I think that's a fairly good explanation then. So obviously, I think there are still some concerns about the travel plan, which have been highlighted in the report. And I think your answer there gives us some satisfaction that those points can be addressed and will be subject to work with the applicant to try and secure those details, subject, of course, to whether this is given planning permission. And do we have any other points, members, please? We've covered quite a few issues here, but do you have any other points which you wish to bring up? Councillor Salter, I think you've just indicated you wish to speak. And Councillor Cross as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just the same thing that I really believe neighbourhood plans, given the amount of work involved in creating them, should be recognised more than sometimes they are in our decisions. They are approved by this council, they're approved on high at the inspectorate, yet they still seem to carry very little weight quite often. Thank you.
Councillor Salter, that's a very, I think, reasonable remark to make, and one with which probably I have some sympathy as well. Neighbourhood plans were launched in a blaze of glory, and many villages and parishes, etc., have spent a lot of money and time doing them. One would like to think that they do carry a lot of weight. There are occasions when we might question that. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm a little bit surprised that as this falls within the designated town centre for Burntwood, none of the Burntwood councillors here declared an interest at the beginning of the meeting. But I'd like to draw attention to item 1127 and item 1128. Not like Frank's conclusions, there is an undersupply of care homes in that area. And I'd like to propose that we accept and approve this application.
Thank you very much indeed. So that's proposed for approval by Councillor Cross. That can be extended. I do apologise, microphone wasn't switched on. So could we please take a vote on that? Members, if you are in favour of approval of this application, can you please raise your hand now? Thank you.
2.
Right, okay. Can I have those against, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, and any abstentions? We have an abstention. Councillor Anketel is abstaining. Thank you very much. Well, obviously we need reasons for refusal here. So if I can just be guided here, I think by Kerry Challoner, the Senior Planning Officer.
Yes, Chair, you will need reasons for refusal if that's the way the debate's going. I think my colleagues will be able to steer you more with that, the process of that. But yeah, we will need valid planning reasons for refusal. We have been to appeal before with this, and officers have defended where we could the reasons for refusal. And yeah, I think everybody's aware of the appeal decision.
Okay, so I do need reasons for refusal, please. Valid reasons for refusal of this. So we need reasons for refusal. Obviously, this is subject to an appeal if we were to refuse it, and we need to make sure that we have robust reasons for that. We can't simply say we're refusing it because we have a gut feeling that we don't like it. That would not stand up at an appeal. So I do need valid planning reasons, please. Yes, Kerry, please. Kerry Challoner.
Yeah, just providing confirmation that the neighbourhood plan does carry significant weight in this process. But I would also advise members to recall the previous reasons for refusal that we used that were against, we refused against the neighbourhood plan, that we didn't think a care home in this location was appropriate or in line, and that was actually overturned by the planning inspector.
I seem to remember that we had 4 reasons for refusal last time, 2 of which were upheld by the inspector and 2 which were declined. So, and since then, of course, there have been some changes to this to mitigate some of those reasons for refusal. So, not wishing to try and in any way prejudice this, but I think we might be slightly short of valid reasons for refusal. That would be my assertion at this time. But I'm relying on the members. If you see fit to refuse it, then we do need to have strong reasons for that refusal. Please.
Mainly it's enabled plan, regardless of what we've been told by Kerry Challoner, that is the biggest concern.
Okay, so Kerry Challoner, I'm just going to ask your professional judgment on that, please. And I know that Councillor Mears wishes to speak as well. Kerry Challoner, please.
Bear with, I'm just trying to find the...
In that case, I'm going to ask Councillor Mears to come in. Councillor Mears, please.
Thank you. Can I ask if an objection has been raised to planning and it's gone to appeal, i.e. the local plan, can that be used a second time or can it only be used once?
Okay, I'm going to ask for the judgment. I'm probably going to ask for Mr. Ansell to come in here, this one, and then perhaps backed up by Kerry Challoner when she's managed to research the answer.
Yeah, so what's effectively being asked of the inspector is to revisit an issue that they've already considered and found to be acceptable. So an issue that a reason for refusal that focuses on the principle of locating a care home here because it's contrary to neighbourhood plan has been looked at by an inspector, has been concluded by an inspector. And so what would be asked of that inspector at an appeal would be the same question. And so it would follow that the same conclusion would follow. But obviously, you know, that's the nature of the inquiry, that's what would happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ansell. Kerry Challoner, please. If you're able to give us a response, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Yes, so last time we had 4 reasons for refusal. 2 were related to highways. 1 was related to the sort of design and impact, and 1 was the conflict with the neighbourhood plan. The inspector says, concluding on the matter of whether or not a care home in this location and being against the neighbourhood plan was an issue or not, that it was one of the main issues that he addressed in his appeal decision. He said, concluding on this matter, the proposed layout and mix of uses would be suitable for its location within the Burntwood town centre, with particular regard to its effect on future development of land in the town centre. Therefore, with respect to this main issue, it would accord with the neighbourhood plan and the allocations plan in contributing to the diversity and vibrancy of the town centre. However, for the reasons given above in respect to its contribution to the surrounding character and appearance, that's where he didn't like the design of it and the overall appearance of it. He said that there was conflict there, but the conflict was down to the design and appearance, not to the actual principle of having a care home in that location. We have refused once on that, and an appeal inspector has come to that conclusion. And I would strongly suggest that another inspector would probably come to exactly the same conclusion. On the previous one as well, members refused it on highways grounds, which we did to an extent try to defend. And then we ended up with costs awarded against us. So although that appeal was dismissed, we did end up with costs awarded against us because the reasons did not stack up, basically. The inspector did dismiss the appeal by virtue of its scale, design and massing. He said it would have an adverse effect on the character and appearance of Cannock Road. He also, or she, sorry, I'm not quite sure. I can't remember if it was a male or female. He also referred to the financial contribution being requested by the ICB as not passing the necessary tests, and it's necessary, it's directly related to the development and so on. So they were the two reasons that the inspector dismissed that appeal. The actual location of the development in Burntwood Town Centre was seen to be appropriate. I can't make the decision for you this evening, members. You've got to provide us with a reason for refusal, but I strongly suggest that you take that on board.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Yes, so the scale, design and massing, I think that has been addressed by the applicant to an extent. And what we have, this iteration that we have in front of us this evening is different and has been, I think, sympathetically amended to try to ameliorate some of the concerns which were expressed at the time. The matter of the integrated care board, that has been dealt with as well, because as Mr. Ansell has already said, a sum of money is not really adequate at this point because there is not a project upon which that money can be spent with a realistically positive outcome. So the ICB issue, I think, has been addressed. The design, scale and massing, well, design has been addressed. Scale and massing, possibly not. You might say that that hasn't really changed. Highways, of course, has been dealt with. And the inspector didn't find reason to refuse it on that basis anyway. I'm struggling to come up with reasons, if I'm honest with you. And I'm sorry, Stuart. Councillor Salter, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is on the design, scale and massing. The design, yes, has changed, but has the size and the massing changed? We've got the proposed elevations and plans here. We haven't had the opportunity to compare them with the original. Can the officer perhaps explain if there is a reduction in scale and massing? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salter.
So the inspector, I'm just going to show the two side by side, but what I can do is try and find the part of the, unless Kerry's doing it, the part of the appeal where the inspector critiques the design, because their main concern was the principal elevation. If I just flick along 2 slides, this was the original scheme. So I remember that they recall this number of windows, 9 windows in a row without any breakup. So they felt this elevation, due to its lack of interest or any architectural features, was quite a big. It emphasised the massing and size of the building quite significantly. You've also got sort of the unbroken ridge. So the inspector didn't like that, and he felt it would have a negative impact on the street scene. So in order to overcome that, the design's changed, now incorporates 2 further gables here of different sizes. It breaks up the string of windows. The windows have architectural detailing in the form of sills and headers. And they've got, as I said, brick banding detailing down, brick banding detailing across. this and the materiality. You've got some cladding, brickwork, and render. So all of that is designed to, the building is necessarily large still, but the design's changed in order to try and break up that massing visually, so it doesn't appear as a monolithic block. It appears as a kind of a building with numerous elements.
Yeah, so I'm still not convinced
Okay.
about the size, the scale and massing,
Okay.
unless that is a generic heading, if you like, of those three words, and one of them has been corrected and it deals with it. If they're taken as three separate elements, then I think only one has been dealt with. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Salter. Thank you, Mr. Ansell, as well. I think Councillor Ashton, then Councillor Mears. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I find it interesting that a dementia care home can be said to add to the vibrancy of a town centre. And I thought that was rather strange wording from the inspector. I think one thing that has been raised, and maybe I've missed it, is that concerns have been raised about the effect that this institution will have on the residents of Burntwood and their access to primary health care. And I think that is one reason that we could add.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. So detrimental to the primary health care in the area. Okay. And I think we've got Councillor Mears as well, please.
Thank you. The design of this building mirrors other buildings which are within walking distance of it. So I think they've tried to replicate what is already in the area to fit in with the look and feel of the buildings that are on the road already. So I think they've gone above and beyond to try and make it look in keeping. The other buildings are identical, 3-storey, with the same design of roof, with the same sort of pieces jutting outwards. So I don't think we can pick fault with the design of the building at all.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Mears. And of course, design is entirely subjective. We all know that. But looked at as objectively as it's possible to look at design, I think we can see that attempts have been made to try and ameliorate the slightly stark appearance, almost Colditz-like appearance of perhaps the first one, whereas this one shows a great deal more, I think, architectural flair, and there has been a desire to try to make it a more attractive, if attractive isn't the wrong word, more attractive building. So thank you very much, Councillor Mears. Do we have any other? Yes, Councillor Evans, please.
Yes, Chair. One of the things about this building, as opposed to other buildings in the area, is it's a storey higher. So it is therefore more imposing on the street scene than the buildings around there. But when I concluded what I said in the first instance, I did say that I can see that our hands are tied. And I can understand what everybody is saying, that it is very difficult to find adequate reasons that will stand up in front of an inspector if it goes to appeal. But nonetheless, we have a duty when we have a neighbourhood plan to actually go along with what the public, we're here to represent them. And therefore, we really need to ensure that we are doing what the public asks. And this instance, we are doing that. And I think it's important that a neighbourhood plan, I can understand what's been said, it was made years ago and things have changed since, but nonetheless, it's still a neighbourhood plan that the public voted for, the public asked for, and we have a duty to protect what is being said. And hence, that is why we as Burntwood councillors are saying what we're saying.
Right, we're going to have to bring this to a conclusion in a moment. Councillor Salter, then Councillor Mears, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, on public opinion, if it requires the addition of indifference opinion to make a majority, then I think that, I know it's not a planning matter, but it's fairly obvious from that there's not a majority actual support for the from the public.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Salter.
Thank you.
Can I just say that, yes, we are here to represent the public, but we're also here to interpret planning law in the way that it should be according to the rules. So we have a responsibility, yes, of course, to the general public, of course we do, but we also have a responsibility to make sure that we interpret the planning rules in a way which is how they're intended to be interpreted. Councillor Mears, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that the building that seems to be modelled on the other corner at Sankey's Corner does actually have 3 stories, so it would be identical in height. I think we're all on board with the idea that care is needed, desperately needed, that the overriding bone of contention could maybe that the worry about healthcare. And one suggestion might be to defer this decision and ask if further provision regarding the healthcare agreement could be settled on.
I'm going to ask the legal officer to come in here. Thank you.
The resolution of committee at the moment, the recommendation, which from the case officer was to approve the application, that has been lost, and what we're actually dealing with is the refusal now. And I think it's important that members can concentrate and now consider what the reasons for refusal are, so that a vote can actually be taken on that.
Well, we have had a vote, haven't we? We've had the vote, and we just want the reasons now.
We still need to do another vote once we've got the reasons, Chair.
Okay. So the reasons as I see it are that it's detrimental effect on the primary care network, and contrary to the neighbourhood plan. And I think we still have issues with the massing of the building as well. Is that correct? So it's not the design necessarily, but it's the massing, isn't it? So those scale and massing, okay. So have I encapsulated the main objections there then? Its effect on the primary care network. It's contrary to the neighbourhood plan and the scale and massing. Yeah. So I think, are those the 3 reasons then that you wish to go forward for the refusal? Yeah. Okay. If I could please then have a show of hands for those of you who wish to refuse this application, please. Based on those 3 criteria.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. Any against refusal?
2 against.
2 against. Any abstentions, please? We have 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. What was that? Was that 7? Was it 7? Yeah. Okay. So we have a vote of 7 in favour of refusal, 2 against, and 1 abstention. For that reason, that application has been refused by this planning committee, and the reasons as enunciated by me a few moments ago. Thank you very much. Thank you. The speaker as well for turning up this evening. So, thank you, Mr. Shuker. Thank you. Thank you. We now move on, members, to the next item on the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is application number 23/00821/FUL. This is land north of Dark Lane at Allrewis, near Burton-on-Trent. This is a piece of land which is well known to us. This came to planning committee many years ago when the permission was given for was granted for the building of 100 and I think it was about 120 houses. And to take us through this, is it you, isn't it, Tom? So it's Mr. Ansell again to take us through this application, please. Thank you very much to Mark Evans for turning up this evening from County Highways as well. Thank you, Mark. So this is the land north of Dark Lane, Allrewis, and it's 23/00821/FUL. Mr. Ansell, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just quickly, this application, and I'll use the term application when I discuss this, it is not a planning application. This is a Section 106A application. They are seeking to change, vary, amend the Section 106 agreement that was originally signed as part of this development. So normally this could be done through a deed of variation. It would be a legal procedure behind the scenes. However, I believe that these applications are for when essentially the original site signatories to the agreement cannot be found or gotten hold of. This is another way of achieving an amendment to the original agreement, so that we're not discussing a planning application. There's no physical development proposed. We're looking at changing the content or the nature of a 106 agreement. So this site consists of a parcel of land which is to the west of a housing estate being constructed by Crest Nicholson. So this is a housing estate in the processes of being built. It's to the north of Dark Lane. The housing estate is to the north of Dark Lane, and the parcel of land is to the west of sort of the housing estate. The parcel of land is undeveloped grass and pasture land, and the following constraints apply, although these should not be regarded as materially affecting the determination of this application. So it's within open countryside, which is beyond the Arawas settlement confines as agreed in the Arawas neighbourhood plan. The northernmost edges of the site are covered by flood zones 2 and 3. The site is highly susceptible to groundwater flooding. It is within the conservation area, and a footpath, Arawas 51, runs to the south of the site too. The site lies to the north of the majority of built form within Arawas and contains abandoned trees. It lies to the south of the Trent-Mersey Canal and River Trent, and the housing estate being constructed, as you can see, is significantly, it's not significantly progressed on that, but on Google recently, it's 3/4 of the way along, if not further. A few photographs ago, it's difficult because at the moment there's terrace fencing around the development site. So this is taken from within the new estate looking into the site. This is essentially where a permissive path is shown on a plan you'll see subsequently. This is a Google Street View, and it shows development on the left and the play area. Fenced off, this photograph is Google Street View in October 23, I think it was. And at that point, the play area hadn't opened. I don't know if it has since opened. I haven't been there recently, but you can see this is taken up here. So the play area is about where my cursor is there. This photograph is from near the canal, where the canal meets the river, and it's across part of the site that's currently within the red line, plan on the Section 106 agreement. And these photographs are from an application that was approved for equestrian development, and that was on the same parcel of land. I do not know where these were taken because I did not take them. They were taken in 2020, but I thought I'd include them because they seem to show the land from other vantage points. But essentially, it's just a parcel of land that's not developed. So, planning application 13-01175 FULM. It was refused by the council on 28th July 2014. The scheme that was refused actually proposed housing in the western portion of the site here. However, the refusal was appealed and the decision went to the Secretary of State. The appeal scheme omitted the housing in the western portion of the site, and the quantum of development was also reduced, the number of houses. A Section 106 agreement was prepared to accompany the appeal, and this agreement was dated 18th of August 2015, and the drawing on the screen is essentially the associated plan. So this is the plan that the 106 agreement referred to. The Secretary of State allowed the appeal and granted permission. The Secretary of State imposed a landscaping condition. And one of the requirements of this condition was to provide tree planting within the western portion of the site here. The Section 106 agreement also required public open space and a play area to be provided in the western section of the site. A drainage basin is also proposed in the northern section of the site here. You can actually, you can't read this because it's been blurred, but this will say drainage basin, and there's a play area, I think, too. That's indicative, completely indicative, but it was part of the original plan. Since allowing the appeal, the development and site evolved through various processes, including applications to discharge planning conditions, such as the landscaping condition, and applications to discharge clauses of the original 106 agreement. The public open space and play area have been provided in the northern section of the site, here. Planning permission has been granted to the owner of the western section of the land to undertake equestrian-related development, including stables, and that is effectively where the one is. There are some stables proposed just about there, and then an access through that gap. The application is therefore seeking to remove the western portion of land from the 106 obligations on the basis it is not performing any critical function or contributing towards any mitigation associated with the housing development. Only a small portion of the land will be retained, as denoted by the red hatches, which is where the drainage basin will be provided. So everything edged in blue is to be removed. This hatched in red is to be kept because that's where the drainage basin will go. Councillors are requested to consider whether omitting the identified land from the 106 agreement adversely impacts the public open space provision to serve the housing development, taking into consideration the appraisal undertaken in the committee report. Councillors are advised that approving this application results in no material changes taking place on the ground at all. It simply removes the land edged in blue from the obligations that are within the current Section 106 agreement. After careful consideration of all relevant matters, officers conclude that the application should be supported for the reasons set out in the full committee report, subsequently to the 106 agreement being amended between the council solicitor and the applicant solicitor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much there to Mr. Ansell. Slightly unusual, this one. I don't think I've come across one quite like this before, where we had a Section 106 agreement and then part of the allocated site was then requested for removal. But of course, this land is not in the ownership of the developer of Crest Homes. And I think Mr. Ansell has given a fairly good critique there of the situation. I know that this was objected to, strong objection from Ulriwas Parish Council. Do we have any speakers, please, on this matter? I suppose really, compared with the previous application, this is, dare I say, relatively more simple. Or am I opening a can of worms by saying that? I'm tempting fate, aren't I, by saying that? Do we have any speakers on this at all, please, or any views that you wish to express? Okay, so the recommendation in front of you is to approve this. And since we don't seem to have any views, so the proposal is the application under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 relating to the on-site public open space set out in the Section 106 Agreement of Application 13/01175/FULM. Originally dated 18th of August 2015 and as varied by way of supplemental Section 106 agreement dated the 30th of June 2016 and deed of variation dated 21st of December 2018. You've heard what Mr. Ansell has said. Do you feel as though it is reasonable then that we approve this application as laid out in your report that you have in front of you, members? If so, can I have a show of, do we have anyone willing to propose this? Yeah, Councillor Cross is proposing approval, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I propose approval.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Ashton is seconding. Thank you very much indeed. So if we can have a vote on that, please, whether you are willing to support the recommendation for approval, please raise your hands. That's unanimous, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. NEMCON. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members, for that. And so far, this is a meeting of two halves. I know they often use that in a sporting context and say it's a match of two halves, but this is a meeting of two halves where the first part was relatively complex, the second part was a little more straightforward. We now move on then to the next application, which is it's the one that appears third on your list, but it's actually the fourth now, and that's 23/00963/FUH. I'd like to thank very much Tom Ansell for his contributions this evening. Thank you very much. This is Keeper's Cottage, Church Lane, Maveston, Ridware, near Rugeley. And I don't know whether we have speakers on. No, we don't have any speakers on this one at all. So, but we do have the debut of the planning officer. This is Catherine Harvey, members. Catherine Harvey, the very first time that she has spoken at Planning Committee, and so I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to her. And so, Catherine, you're going to take us through this, aren't you? This Keeper's Cottage one at Church Lane, Mavis and Ridware, and we're ready when you are. Thank you very much.
Before you do that,
Yes,
can I, I've just noticed who the applicant is, and she is known to me.
Okay, thank you. It's not too late to record that declaration of interest. So have we recorded that declaration of interest, please, officers? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Right, so Catherine Harvey, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The application before you is for the erection of a two-storey front extension, addition of a first floor to the existing dormer bungalow, balcony to the rear, and the erection of a replacement garage and an L-shaped outbuilding to the front of the site, which should just be about there. And there's the aerial view of the site. We do have two public footpaths which run along the front of the site there, and then just there's one further down as well, and they run up here. The application is being brought to you today because of an objection from the parish council. Their main objection was concerning the materials to be used in this proposal. And you can just see there's the existing bungalow. And that is the garage in photograph 3 that is to be demolished and replaced. And photograph 4 shows the entrance to the site from Church Lane. And those are the existing plans, and that is the proposed plans for the main building. The materials have been assessed also by the conservation officer, and this is in the conservation area, and there are listed buildings nearby as well. The conservation officer is happy with the bulk and the scale of the proposal, but did share the same point as the parish council to do with the materials. So to counteract that, we have put a condition on the report to secure the materials prior to the commencement of any development on the site. And the existing ridge height of the property was 5.5 metres. The existing ridge height of the proposal, as shown in the presentation, would be 7.6 metres. And these plans show the replacement garage to the side of the dwelling. And this is the L-shaped outbuilding to the front. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. Okay, so Councillor Salter, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if the parish council have been consulted as to their opinion of the condition of the change of construction materials. Are they happy with the suggestion of the
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank
a valid question. Thank you very much. Do we have an answer to that, please, Catherine?
We've secured it via condition. So what will happen is they will submit it to us prior to any work. And if we're happy with what they've shown the materials to be, we will approve it. If we're not happy, we'll go back and say, this is not acceptable.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you, Councillor Salter. Any other questions or points, please? I did note when I read the report about its impact on the local church there, which has been taken into account by the conservation officer, and there is not considered to be any real conflict there. I have to say, looking at the plans, and this is not a criticism, it's just an objective assessment, it's quite a substantial increase in the size of the building. I don't know whether we do have actual figures in terms of how much the building will have increased. Do we know that? We do, Catherine. Thank you very much.
Yes, so the existing volume of the dormer bungalow is 474 metres cubed. The new volume would be 760 metres cubed, which is a 60% increase.
And may I just ask whether that is considered to be reasonable in terms of planning context, please?
The main thing for me was that the conservation officer was happy with the scale and the bulk of the extension. The only sort of objection raised was the materials, and I feel that the condition will address that.
Thank you very much. And I realise that this is not terribly visible from the road. It is visible from a couple of footpaths, I think, but that was deemed to be not particularly controversial. And generally speaking, there didn't seem to be any real objections from any of the statutory consultees. And it seems as though, in your professional judgment, Catherine, that this is a reasonable development. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions or points you wish to raise, please? And if not, Councillor Salter, please.
Yes, sorry, I seem to be hogging it somewhat. Just a thought about permitted development rights on this. Being in a conservation area, I think they're restricted and limited anyway. I'm thinking sort of future-proofing it, shall we say. They've got what amounts to a 60% increase already. Can any condition be put on in respect of future-proofing for extensions?
A very valid question, and I think not at all unreasonable to request that. Catherine, what would be your view on that, please?
Yeah, so for the same reason that you said, Councillor, we haven't removed permitted development rights because they are severely restricted within the conservation area. But if that was something members wanted to do, then we could add that on as a condition of removal of PD rights.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I'm just going to defer here to Kerry Challoner to come in. Kerry, please.
Yeah, just to advise members. So in terms of the conservation area, there's quite a lot of restrictions forward of the property. However, there probably are some extensions that could be made to the building. So if you are minded to add the removal of PD rights, then that officers wouldn't really object to that. But that is something that we can do. You'd have to include that as part of your vote.
Okay, so does that appear to be, I think, Councillor Salter, you were proposing, or at least suggesting, not proposing, but you brought up that subject. So do you think removal of PDR would be appropriate in this case?
Given, well, both officers' answer to it, I think it would be advisable to add that. So I propose inclusion.
So I need to have, that's been proposed by Councillor Salter. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Anketel is seconding that. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second it. It's set well back from the road, so there shouldn't be any objection.
Sorry, so you're not seconding the removal of PDR?
I'm seconding the removal of PDR, and I'm seconding the motion as well, and giving a reason.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Proposed approval of this, Councillor Salter, and you've also proposed the removal of PDR, and it's been seconded, I think, by Councillor Anketel. The application, well, the proposal for approval has been seconded by Councillor Anketel, and Anketel has also seconded the removal of PDR. Thank you. I think we've got the full set there, haven't we, more or less? Right, so members, could we have a vote on that, please? First of all, we're just looking for a vote approving this application, please, as been described to you by Catherine Harvey. Can I have a show of hands, please, if you are willing to approve this application here tonight? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, Catherine, are you doing the next one as well? Thank you very much. The final application this evening, then, members, is 23/01289/FUH. I forgot to say formally that application at Keeper's Cottage, Maverson Ridware, has been approved by this planning committee. So, Catherine, you're going to take us through 23 Upper Longdon. That's 23/01289/FUH. Thank you very much. And then this will round off this evening's planning committee. If you'd like to take us through this application, Catherine, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a first floor rear extension and the conversion of an existing garage to an annex. The application is coming forward to you. Again, this is an objection from the parish council on the grounds of overdevelopment of the site. As you can see from the image, the site sits within quite a varied street scene. There's quite a range of size of properties. They're visible there. And then photograph one shows that a little bit more. You can see the difference in the vernacular between the dwellings. Photograph 2 shows the garage, which is to be converted. I think they're having a window and a door on that elevation. Other than that, there's no other material change to its appearance. And then that photograph 3 shows the rear of the property where the first floor extension would be. And then photograph 4 is the rear of the garage. And these are the existing and proposed block plans. And this bottom one just shows the footprint of the first floor extension a bit better. And these are the existing plans and the proposed plans. And then the garage, yes, just a singular window and a door. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, so the garage is being made into a garden room, I think, isn't it, Catherine? Is it
It's an annex.
an annex? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, there you are. We had one in Upper Longdon just I think, was it last meeting or the meeting before? So there does seem to be a trend in Upper Longdon to enlarge some of these houses, many of which, having grown up in the village, or Longdon Green at least, I know a lot of those houses were built in the early to mid 60s. And I think a lot of owners now find that they need to possibly modernize them to an extent and also to enlarge them wherever possible. So do we have any points that you wish to make, members, please? Councillor Anketel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I see that no objections have been received from any of the neighbouring houses.
I'm so sorry. I do beg your pardon. We do have a speaker for this. I'm so sorry, Councillor Anketel.
Okay.
Okay. So the speaker for this is Mr. John Imber. Mr. Imber, if you'd like to take your position, please. And I'm extremely sorry that I overlooked you, sir. Anyone would think that I was trying to bring the meeting to a premature conclusion. I do apologise for that. Mr. Imber, you have 5 minutes to speak. You probably heard me when I gave instructions earlier to one of the previous speakers. You have 5 minutes with 30 seconds still to go. You will be notified of that, and you must cease speaking. If you are doing so still at 5 minutes, you must cease as soon as the 5 minutes is up. So your time will start as soon as you commence speaking. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I will try and keep this brief. Your officer's report identifies all relevant material planning considerations, clearly sets out the planning balance and arrives at a positive recommendation, which is welcomed. The proposals essentially involve replacing 2 flat roof dormers on the rear of the property with a single larger dormer to create additional headroom within 2 first floor bedrooms and make space for en-suites. It's also proposed to convert the existing garage to a granny flat. The existing property features dormers, and there are several other properties in the immediate area with them as well. The garage requires very little external change to facilitate its use as a granny flat. The proposals would not therefore appear out of keeping with surrounding built form. The windows on the rear of the dormer are far enough from neighbouring properties to avoid causing unacceptable overlooking, and there will be no unacceptable loss of daylight as a result of these proposals. The proposals do not increase the built footprint of the property and do not, in our view, result in overdevelopment of the plot. The loss of the garage leaves the property with more than adequate off-street parking provision. The proposals would not therefore harm the character or appearance of their surroundings, would not harm the amenities enjoyed by neighbouring residents, and would not prejudice the safe or efficient use of the highway network. We would therefore encourage members to approve the application as recommended by your professional planning officers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much there to Mr. John Imber. Thank you, sir. You didn't require the full 5 minutes, and so thank you for your very succinct report there. Members, so this is... Yeah, I understand. Yeah, Councillor Salt and Councillor Anketel. I'm going to take Councillor Anketel first because you were just about to speak when I realised my mistake. So Councillor Anketel, then Councillor Salter. this is here, as was mentioned, because of an objection by Longden Parish Council in terms of their perceived overdevelopment of the site, if you just recall that. Councillor Anketel, please.
Thank you, Chair. There have been no complaints from the neighbours, and other people have made alterations to their houses there, and I can see no reason why we shouldn't accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anketel. So you're proposing approval of this, aren't you?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Salter, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any issues with the design and size, scale, etc. I have to say I'm a little intrigued by the position of the building itself, looking at the location plan, how much forward it is of the rest of the row of houses either side of it. I'm wondering if it was built later. It does seem very odd. And I think if the particular building was in line with the others and they wanted to build forwards of it, I think they'd have quite a few objections to that. But my one thought is that this is an FUH application, which is for the development of the household. And I'm just wondering whether the change of the garage to a granny flat requires a separate COU.
I will perhaps defer. Should I defer to Kerry on this one, please? Kerry, if you'd like to come in. Kerry Challoner, please, Senior Planning Officer.
So the application is for ancillary accommodation. So it's within the red line and it would share the host property basically. If they wanted to make it into a separate dwelling, they would have a separate application and it couldn't be dealt with under a householder consent. It would have to be a full planning permission.
Yes, yeah, it was the terminology. It was said to be an annex, and then in the presentation we heard from the speaker, it was termed a granny flat, which to me means that is accommodation. It's a residence, if you like. So
I think as long as it's ancillary to the main building and used by a member of the family, and does not take on a separate property rights, then I think ancillary use is quite common. We see that quite a lot. As I say, it would be preserved for family members only. And I personally don't have any reservations about it, but I understand that you're just raising that as an issue, a possible issue. Okay, thank you. Any other points, please, that we have? Okay. In terms of it being set slightly forward of some of the others, that is true. The topography of Upper Longden is such that it's adjacent to what's known as Huntsman's Hill and then the Grange Hill as well. Quite a steep incline there, and I know that because as a young lad, I used to cycle up there with a load of Express and Stars slung over my shoulder, and that's quite a substantial climb. That might explain why some of the houses are laid out the way they are, because there is the land does fall away quite steeply at that point. We've had a proposal for approval in line with the officer's recommendation from Councillor Anketel. I don't so far have a seconder. I have a seconder now, Councillor Galvin. Thank you very much indeed. Members, we therefore have a proposal for approval, as I say, in line with the officer's recommendation, proposed by Councillor Anketel. It's now been seconded by Councillor Galvin. Can I ask for a vote on this, please, if you're willing to approve, subject to the conditions as laid out in your report? Thank you. And I believe that is unanimous as well. Thank you very much indeed. In which case I can declare that 23/01289/FUH has been approved by this planning committee here at Lichfield District Council on today's date, which is the 13th of May, 2024. With that, members, I'm going to conclude the meeting. I'd like to thank all the members for attending this evening and for your input and your deliberations and your voting preferences this evening. I'd like to thank the speakers, only one of whom is still with us, but thank you very much indeed for coming along this evening. And I'd also like to say a very good night to all of those who are watching remotely from whichever part of the world you may be in at the moment. Thank you. And with the time I'm using Apple time, aren't I? What's Apple time at the moment? 1934. So with the time at 1934, I declare this meeting at Lichfield District Council closed. And thank you very much for your attendance. Good night.